All right. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Cheat Code Radio. I'm your host, Nicholas Downey, and I'm joined once again by my usual compatriot.
Hey everybody, it's Anchorman V2 or Ivan Seiler. Pleasure to be back on the show after a bit of a reprieve there. But all right, let's jump into some of this stuff, man. I mean, it's been a weird last 2 weeks. Like not a ton of stuff has happened, but a lot of little tidbits and things. So let's go ahead and get things started. But
Absolutely.
first off, I know we got to start off with our poll question from last week. The question we asked: what did you guys think of the PlayStation event from 2 weeks ago now? So, with 7% of the vote, I'd rather play Stadia than watch that show again. With 36% of the vote, certified banger. And with 57% of the vote and the decided majority, everyone thought apparently was just okay. So,
That's fair.
not too bad.
That's not a bad showing.
Yeah, not bad at all. So, I believe we got questions we have to get through. So, we got a couple ones on here. I'll just pull up the first one. A minute. Here we go. All right, first off on our list, Tokyo Game Show is coming up. Do you guys think there'll be any big news coming out of that? This question came from Weeaboo Wendell. So, what do you think about Tokyo Game Show? So, like, I don't normally, at least in terms of the summer shows that normally come out, E3 is always normally the biggest one. Gamescom kind of hit or miss. Either it's like just as good as E3, or you totally could have missed it. Like it's not as reliable as E3. And Tokyo Game Show, I always kind of just put in like this weird like third category, where it's just kind of like, eh. Like you may get one good announcement out of it, but I don't put any stock in it normally. But because it's really more curated towards the Eastern audience, and just I don't think we're gonna get anything. But I mean, what do I know?
Yeah, Tokyo Game Show is always kind of that thing where, like you said, it's more geared towards the eastern side of the world. Like, it's more of a showcase of, things they're going to be interested in. Like, Xbox is apparently going to be showing off some indie partnerships. They're going to be Japanese focused over there. Obviously, we probably see some Square Enix stuff, I would imagine. Maybe see, I don't honestly know. I've never kept up much with Tokyo Game Show. Tokyo Game Show is one of those events that I would love to go to, but I don't follow, if that makes any sense. Like, I would love to go there and do like some of the preview events and go to like just experience Tokyo as a whole. But as far as like keeping up with it, it's the time zone thing for everything because it's in Japan. It's weird ass times EST for me, and I'm just like, I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a strange world to live in there. So I mean, I get it. But even outside of the time zone stuff, like most of the announcements we get for Tokyo Game Show are more like it's all more curated towards that Eastern audience. So I mean, in terms of like what would be announced, I mean, I personally, I'll make it clear, I personally have heard nothing about what they're gonna do for Tokyo Game Show for anybody. But I would assume like that's the time for like port announcements.
Hmm.
Um, like I mean, if Xbox is getting any Japanese games, like that's the place they're probably gonna announce it, just to kind of mention that and curate towards that newer Japanese audience that they've been establishing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that came out then.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think you'll see some stuff like, we're going to see some Persona stuff, I would imagine. Because, they're doing the 25th anniversary, so you'll probably see maybe the next game in Persona be revealed, maybe. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I've slowly been getting more into Japanese games, but I am far from a expert by any stretch of the imagination. So traditionally, Tokyo Game Show is kind of like Gamescom, is we find out more about games that we already kind of know about. It's not usually big for announcements, but we get good chunks of gameplay. Like if I remember correctly, Final Fantasy VII Remake got a good chunk of gameplay post its the summer reveal it had. Uh, the last time around. And typically you get more in-depth looks at upcoming games. So, maybe we see I don't know. I can't really make predictions. Like Persona seems like a given, whether it's Persona 4 coming to PlayStation or wherever the case may be. Who knows? Maybe we'll find. If there was ever a place where we were to see an announcement of Persona coming to Xbox, it would be here. But I'm still split 50-50 on that, and I will put the asterisks in front of it saying, I have heard nothing in regards to what anybody's planning for Tokyo Game Show because I do not have a growing list of Eastern contacts currently.
Yeah. So not particularly surprised. So I believe next on our list here. You know what? Actually, no. Let's put a pause on the questions for a minute because there's just a ton of like rumors that have been going around. I mean, that kind of fits into it in terms of like the things that we've heard, I guess. So I figure that would be probably a better place for this.
Okay.
Where was it? So like, there's been a lot of rumors floating around, and most of them I've been seeing have been Xbox related. I know our listeners want to know about this specifically because I've had people ask me about like a dozen times in the last week, like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?" So I guess this is a good opportunity for us to kind of like point those out and like just tell people if we've heard about it or not. Just simply because it's something that we know you guys want, and I think it'd be a good time to do so. So first off, on the rumor mill, I've been hearing and seeing about. All of these have to do with acquisition news for Xbox. It's been all over the place. The first one I've heard about is Sega. There's some rumblings about, and the rumblings in terms of social media, not in terms of like actual news or anything, about Microsoft doing an acquisition with Sega. Nick, have you heard anything about this? Do you think possibilities? What do you got?
No, I haven't heard anything about Xbox and Sega. I would. Here's the thing: is I think people need to stop looking at necessarily just acquisitions and start looking more at partnerships that can be built. Sega is a lot more of a complicated company than a lot of people understand because when people think Sega, they think video games, but there's a lot more to Sega's portfolio than just video games. Like, you've got obviously the arcades and stuff, but there's more to that. I believe they've got like casinos, resorts, all sorts of different variety of things under the Sega umbrella that, is business that Microsoft necessarily wouldn't want to get in bed with or deal with the legalities of, dealing with. It's the same reason why, whenever we see the inevitable, Sony's acquiring Konami. No, they're not. There's too much. Konami's all in on resorts, gambling, the whole 9 yards. Those companies aren't going to be acquired by companies. Now, do we see strategic partnerships? Yes. Do I think there's a possibility of Sega and Xbox having a strategic partnership? I think so. Do I know anything? No. I think it's just this rumor, like, ever since you and me have known each other, the whole idea of, Sega and Xbox being in bed together has always been a thing. This has been a rumor since like 2015 at this point.
I'd say longer than that because it's been like the whole thing with Sega, and for the young people who don't know, like most people in our age bracket and older view Microsoft as the successor to Sega in the gaming sphere. Because when Sega left, Microsoft jumped in, and it was kind of that nice alternative to the Sony and Nintendo crowds. And so there's this friendly relationship between it because of the Dreamcast. So a lot of people who want Microsoft to buy out Sega is wanting that to kind of just be complete. And it'd be one of those things where it's more like a nice little garnet jewel in the Microsoft crown. Not the big showcases, but just a tiny little thing, so you can say, "Oh, look, it's one entity now." It's come full circle. So that's a lot of the reason why. And I mean, like, I don't think a Sega acquisition would be worth their time, specifically. Namely, just because of what they get out of it. Let's see. I'll take a look here. So, like IPs from Sega. Now, there are several IPs on here that, like, people would know, but I don't think that any of them have like franchise potential. I wouldn't say that much. Let's see. Clockwork Knight, Columns.
The easiest way to sum up
Penguin Land.
The easiest way to sum up Sega is a lot of it is nostalgia. There is some stuff that they put out now or they publish now that is really good, but it is not acquisition worthy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I think it's primarily driven by an older generation of people. Because for a lot of people, like I've had this conversation with Eric, I've had this conversation with like Cognito before, is, people that loved the Sega Dreamcast then moved to the original Xbox because it felt like the spiritual child of the Dreamcast, right? So I feel like it's a partnership that everyone wants to happen for that sake. Because, the Dreamcast has such a special following and everything else that people tie a lot of that into that. And I think that's okay, but I feel like people are grasping at straws for this one.
Admittedly, like I only seen like maybe 2 or 3 people mention about it before. The rest of these I've heard a lot more from. So I just want to leave that out of the way. This is the one that we've been hearing about for the last 6 months, well, almost a year at this point. Warner Brothers. That supposedly Microsoft is going to be purchasing Warner Brothers in its entirety or bits and pieces. I could say I haven't heard anything since E3 regarding this. I think it's safe to say that, they're in negotiations and talks about it. That we do know, but that doesn't really say much. It just says that, hey, parties are interested. That's about it.
well, and see, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? You can use common sense. Like every time a rumor starts to actually gain heat, Warner Brothers comes out and goes, no, we're not for sale. Nobody's selling anything. And it's like, okay. Like if it was just a rumor that had no facts behind it, you would just ignore it. We see it all the time. People make up stuff about Nintendo, Microsoft, PlayStation, sites run with it all the time, and you'll never see them deny it. But Warner Brothers, every time a rumor of an acquisition, or whether it was PlayStation or Xbox is acquiring this studio or this IP or anything like that, Warner Brothers immediately comes out and denies it, but does it in such a roundabout way that they're not actually denying it. They're just like, no, stop. And it's like, okay.
It's a strange little thing, and it goes back and forth. So I'm not like, I don't put any stock in it, at least right now. I don't think we're probably going to get an announcement on that for a while. So, and also we talked about this before several times, that normally when publishers and such are looking to sell, they will not publicly say anything about that, like Nick mentioned. But it's also in terms of like, you have to look at the positioning before the sale. Bethesda's a great example. Like right beforehand, like in 2018, right before they were trying to be sold, they came out and announced like everything they were working on like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, we're working on Elder Scrolls 6. We're working on Starfield. They're not anytime soon or close or anything, but we're working on it. Like there was no other reason to announce that other than, hey, bolster up your price. So I'm not at all surprised by that. And like also with Warner Brothers in particular, they had this whole thing where they did the same exact thing. So like, oh yeah, here's we want to be sold. People gave the asking price, and they were like, nope, don't like it. Went off the market, and then announced Suicide Squad, showed the new thing for Hogwarts Legacy. Then they did Gotham Knights, and now they're back on the market again.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, increase our price.
Yeah.
So, It's the same. It's the same kind of story here. It's not anything particularly new. I'd say wait and see. Definitely a good chance of it happening. I think it'd be a good buy for Microsoft specifically, but yeah, it's not. Wouldn't put like a ton of stock in anything happening immediately soon. All right. The other one I've been hearing about. This is actually the newest one that I heard, and I think there might be something to it. Ubisoft. Did you hear anything about this, Nick? Like I saw a bunch of this like last week and this week.
I've seen a bunch of stuff floating around, but I've got my own thoughts, so to speak, on Ubisoft.
Yeah. I will say, like, for me, I have no idea what they're gonna do, but I would say it's safe to say Microsoft and Ubisoft are definitely doing something. Mainly because I've seen reputable sources like mention different things and just completely different levels of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some people say, oh, they're partnering up for an exclusive game. Then I've heard like completely different people say like, oh no, they're looking at a total buyout. I've seen people say, oh yeah, they're doing a contract deal with Game Pass. I've seen a wide range of stuff, which basically tells me no one really knows what they're doing, but it's something related.
Well, I think, and like, I'm sure people will correct me if they feel I'm wrong here. I feel like a lot of the Ubisoft rumors stem from the fact that Ubisoft feels like it's in a bit of a free fall right now. They don't really have any games that people are looking forward to. They're kind of in a state of, we're doing a hub world styled Assassin's Creed game. We're doing a free to play Division game. We're doing, a handful of other things. Like, I feel like Ubisoft right now doesn't really have an identity, because they're going through so much structural struggle right now. With all the workplace issues they had, the leadership issues, them firing some people, but them promoting other people, and whatever the case may be. I feel like people are saying that it makes sense for Microsoft to buy them because Ubisoft is in a position of weakness right now. And a lot of people look at Bethesda being in a weak spot when they were acquired as a clear-cut sign that Ubisoft is going to be acquired. I don't want to say no one will ever acquire Ubisoft, but what I will say is I don't think that's the play that Ubisoft wants to make right now. I think they'd kind of, if Ubisoft was to do anything, I feel like what would make the most sense, and this is just me armchair financing here, would be they would cut their, what is it, their Uplay Plus or whatever the hell they've got on PC. They've got a sub-service on PC. It gets you all access to all the Ubisoft games for like $20 a month or something. Could that end up being on Game Pass and then they come to console? Maybe. Maybe that's something Ubisoft looks into doing. But I don't think there's a buyout. The one upside to a buyout that people could make the argument for is that if, unlike the Xbox or the Bethesda buyout, where, they kept all of Bethesda's leadership in tow, like, Todd, Pete, everybody, they want to keep everyone on board. With the Ubisoft buyout, nobody's going to cry if Microsoft bought Ubisoft and then booted UVs to the curb.
They totally do a clean house move. So it's like, see, we're not bringing any of this drama into our company.
Yeah, like I could see that if that buyout ever happened, I would say almost definitively do that. Because right now Microsoft's whole goal is, it's about the culture and creating a creative culture, because they had so much complaints and fair criticism of how they handled themselves in the late days of the 360 and the early days of Xbox One, how they treated creatives, how they treated their own internal studios and everything else. They don't want to bring in bad behavior. And if you look at the culture of Bethesda and what we've seen, Bethesda has incredible culture and very much meshes with what the direction of Xbox is. And I just don't think Ubisoft represents that direction right now. And I don't think Microsoft would spend billions to then have to overhaul the culture. Like, that seems like a lot of work for, some stagnant IPs right now.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point. So, that's one of those things. I don't think there's anything specific. Other point. So there's another one. This is a newer one. Bungie. From what I can tell, this one stems from a recent era post. Where they're like, hey, I don't think this means anything necessarily, but just as a heads up, I was in an area near where Bungie's.
Oh, is this the guy that overheard two Bungie developers talking in a coffee shop?
That's the earliest thing I think I could point to where the rumors kind of started.
There was rumors about this a few months ago due to that anniversary event that they were doing. Remember, there was that Halo crossover event that they were going to do with Bungie apparently in Destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, I had heard something about that, but I didn't put much stock in it necessarily. But yeah, no, I think it's a random. It's just a random little thing, and like I'm trying to imagine like what they would do with that necessarily. And the more I think about it, the more I kind of agree that would actually be a really good move on their part.
See, for me, there's a couple of things where I just don't think the Bungie Microsoft thing makes sense. One, Destiny's pretty self-sufficient at this point. And, Bungie is working on a new IP. But there's a couple of hiccups into the whole Microsoft buying them. One, if they bought them, it'd be really weird because of the fact that they separated the way they did and then to, buy them later. But the two main factors that speak to me of why Microsoft wouldn't acquire Bungie is one is the fact that NetEase invested, I can't remember how much money it was a lump sum into Bungie post Activision split. And NetEase is the Chinese mobile games company. And they invest a huge variety of different gaming companies. And number two is Bungie just got out of a relationship with Activision and has been flexing their creativity and their freedom. And so far, from what I can tell from listening to Destiny fans and Destiny podcasts, is that fans are really happy with this independent direction that Bungie has taken with Destiny 2 because they're no longer anchored to what their publisher wants them to do or what Activision's expectations for the game were. So I can't see them putting themselves in a situation where they're back under a publisher again. I think Bungie will remain self-sufficient unless Destiny 2 starts to dwindle.
Mm-hmm. So I think personally that this is it's a really good idea with them wanting to acquire Bungie if that is indeed something they want to do. So here's my thought process on it. Microsoft's in a weird particular spot, specifically with Halo, because Halo right now is stagnant. We're both on the eve of the Halo Insider Tech Test for us, and so we both are definitely interested in seeing what Halo has to offer. But I think it's a very safe thing to say. Halo doesn't feel like it has any direction right now. It just kind of feels like every time there's a new one, they just kind of cobble together whatever they have, and they're like, this is a new game, right? It's like that's what it feels like every time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say fix it. And it just comes off like they have no goal, they have no story they actually really want to tell, and they're just kind of piece something together just to service a game a game existing.
Mm-hmm.
I think 343. I mentioned this before. I think 343 is in trouble after Halo Infinite launches. I would not be surprised if Phil and Satya go in there and start cleaning house, specifically of executives, because it just like I said, it feels really stale in the mismanagement of everything. Like, oh yeah, like COVID did exist, but like they had a year-long delay that cost Microsoft millions of dollars in advertising, and now they have to kind of make up for that. And it's not going to sell a lot. Like it's probably going to end up being a loss for them in terms of development time, ad money, everything. It's probably going to be a loss, and I think they're not going to accept that. But I had a conversation earlier today with Sumo and a couple other guys, Neverborn and a few others, and they mentioned like, what if Microsoft kind of went through and like reshuffled their IPs with their developers? And like I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And the joke was like, well, what if id Software got Halo? Like, what would their Halo look like? And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. But then I thought about it. I was like, what if 343 lost Halo and Microsoft recently acquired Bungie? Like, just imagine what that would look like. Just think about that for a minute. The fanfare would be over the top. Like, oh, Halo's back with Bungie. It's a big deal. Oh, we love that. Oh, Bungie, you're the savior. And people would automatically have faith in the franchise again. Bungie could bounce back and forth between doing like, all right, we want to do our MMO stuff, and then we also want to do our MMO stuff with Destiny. We could also get to do like a hardcore campaign and focus on that with Halo, and just kind of bounce back and forth with these two franchises. They could do something with that. Like, we'll put 343 on in charge of like, hey, Halo expansions, get to work. Like, in terms of like, hey, you want to do a spin-off game? You can focus on a spin-off game, but you don't get to have the main franchise anymore. Let Bungie have that. And the more I think about it, like, I like that idea of switching off IPs between studios. I think Microsoft's kind of already started doing that, but right now I think they're more focused on developing franchises and IPs that don't have homes already, like Playground and Fable, and
like Perfect Dark being handled by the Initiative versus having Rare do it, having Fable being handled by Playground Games. I see where you're going with it. I just
these orphan franchises.
See, the only thing is, and the only thing is, 343 was created for Halo. Period. End of story. That whole studio was created to handle Halo. Do they branch outside of Halo? Yes. Does anyone take over Halo? No. And I don't think there's any world where we see Bungie take a stab at Halo again. I just don't think there's a desire to. Because they've done Bungie with what they've done with Destiny's 2's expanded universe and continuing the story with their seasons is much better handled than Halo ever has been in the past decade. Like, Destiny's problem lies in its game balancing, not its storytelling. And Bungie continues to tell really good stories. I agree with you. I think come post Halo Infinite launch, they're gutting 343 in a management level. I think having Staten come in shows that they did not have faith in the leadership of 343, and with Chris Lee leaving and then Staten coming in, I think that speaks volumes in Xbox's faith in 343 to deliver something, which is zero, basically.
Like, Bonnie Ross is gone after this. I can tell you that. Like, she is gone after this event.
There
Halo drops, maybe 2 to 3 months, she's gone.
There is no world, and see the thing is I believe they would have hack and slashed a lot more people if they weren't worried about the news cycle catching up. You know, before the game launches, you hack the studio to pieces. You know, it's not exactly the best PR for your game, and people are already questioning what the quality of Halo is going to be already. So why put more fear?
It would definitely be after it launches. It would definitely be after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll start with the executives, and you'll start seeing like someone may retire, or someone may, oh yeah, we gotta go, something like that. Like you'll see something along those lines first, but then after that, like they're gone.
It's like when Chris Lee left, he said, you know, oh, I found another project I'm really passionate in, or something along those lines. He said, and he hasn't done anything. He's not part of anything as far as I know. So, but yeah, I don't see the Bungie thing happening. But you know, I've been proven wrong by coffee shops before, so who knows?
So that's enough for the rumor mill, though. Just to give it, as well, I think we should knock that part out first, because like I said, none of our other topics really kind of go into something like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, next question for this evening, or morning for some of you. So, Deathloop is finally out. You guys played it. Why is it getting review bombed on Metacritic? This comes from Death Sniper X. I know I haven't played it yet. Not yet. From what I can tell, it looks like a great game. For me, there's the practical reason I don't have a PS5 yet, and that's the practical reason behind it. I don't play on PC, but also too, like arcane games, I just don't. I like them. I appreciate how they're made and all that sort of thing. I know Sam's gonna kill me for finishing the sentence, but I just don't. As far as them being games, I have a hard time connecting with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think they make some of the best environmental spaces of any other developer. When you could tell Arcane's touched something based on the environment that they make.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think was it Wolfenstein New Blood? Arcane worked with id to create these environments, and you could tell they definitely helped them. But it's not. It doesn't. I don't think that they took any of the bad stuff out of it. It has its own problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. It's just one of those things where I'm not. It's not bad, but it's not great either. And I got to be in the right mood to play it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not. Like, it definitely looks good. I'm definitely gonna play it at some point, but just not right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's fair.
What about you? Have you get a chance to play it at all?
Yeah, I'm like 20-ish hours into it now.
Spill the beans, man. Spill the beans.
It's really good. I like it a lot. I like it because it feels more flexible than a lot of Arcane games. Like, I love the Dishonored games because they give you all these powers. You know, there's different ways you can approach every situation. It's really up to you to how you handle each situation you're put into. But the thing with the Dishonored games is if you go through and kill everybody, you get a really shitty ending. And that sucks. So they give you all these cool powers, but in the end, they punish you for using them. Which kind of, like, I love that because I love the stealth aspect and doing the non-lethal playthroughs and stuff like that. I enjoy that. But what I love about Deathloop, it's like, hey, kill everybody. And we'll reward you the more people you kill. It's like, oh, okay. You guys are going to give me a bunch of powers and you just want me to kill everybody? Okay. Sign me up. Let's do it. Like, the combination of supernatural powers mixed with just the gunplay alone, I'm playing this like it's Doom 2016. And I love it. I can just, like, I can take 14 guys on at once if I want to. Because they give you the power and the firearms to do so. But if you also want to sneak through and not kill anyone but the targets, you can do that too. It's just the sheer variety of how you can approach everything that's really cool. And just their level design in general. Like, each level has layers to it. And what I mean layers is, like, their level design is not, you have to go this way to walk through here. If you want to get over here, you have to go through here. There's ditches you can climb under. You can walk along the side of a cliff face to get to a secret tunnel, to get into a different part of the room. There's, like, I'll use a perfect example. You have to sneak into this guy's radio fortress, basically. He does his radio show in it. And I found through one of the playthroughs, if I hop down to the lake, the frozen lake underneath, I could hop across cars, across the frozen water, and then pop into a hidden sewer vent that would pop me into the public bathroom without having to go through the front door. So I could skip like 5 encounters with guards and just be right into the thick of it, right off the bat. And it's just that level of playability. And, like, you don't even have to do that. You can hop along the cliff face and then go on the roof and then go down through the stairs to go down through the building. Or you can come through the side. Like, there's so many ways you can approach each level. It keeps it fresh. Because as you loop, you still have to kill the same people over and over again until you can line it up so you can kill everyone in one day. Because that's the goal, is you kill everybody in a 24-hour block to end this time loop. So you end up killing the same people multiple times, but you find yourself doing it in different ways, not only to challenge yourself, but to find more information on other people. It sounds really confusing, but it really unlocks naturally. Like, as you kill someone one way, you'll find a note and it'll be like, oh, well, this person does this at this time of day. And you're like, oh, okay. So this person's actually in this location during this time. And if I line this up with this, it's very methodical. And it lets you play it the way you want, but it unlocks in such a weird way that it doesn't really matter where you learn that piece of information. It still fills in the puzzle in the same way. Like, if you find a piece of information that I found 20 hours in your first 2 hours, it won't change how you experience the rest of the game. It doesn't spoil anything. It doesn't change anything like that. It's just you found a different puzzle piece at a different time. And it still matters just as much as if you found it in the first hour as you did in the 20th hour. And that's just a really weird design choice that I have to give them credit for it, because to be able to write a narrative around what someone could find in different times and different playthroughs is really, really challenging. And to make that all seamlessly go together, it's witchcraft, honestly.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's very interesting. So, I like I said before, it's more about a mood for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, why is it being review bombed? You know, Nick?
Oh, I know. I know why. Because, see, the thing is, the reason this is being review bombed is because fanboys are tearing themselves apart right now internally with this. Because Xbox fans are sitting there going, haha, this is an Xbox Game Studios game because Arcane made it and they're part of Bethesda. So they're all giddy as hell about it, but they can't play it right now, so that sucks. And Super PlayStation fans are upset about it because they don't want to admit the game's good, because then they're admitting that Bethesda makes good games by default then. And they can't be giving Microsoft credit for anything. So obviously Deathloop sucks because it's made by a Bethesda Softworks team. And it's just fanboy narratives tearing themselves apart. Is because it's this internal battle of not being able to give another fan base credit for something, or give another company credit, or whatever the case may be. It's this weird game of who can we credit for this? Like, I saw people going, well, Deathloop wouldn't be possible without Microsoft. I'm like, no. And then I saw people being like, well, Deathloop wouldn't exist without PlayStation. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure Deathloop was in production and then PlayStation bought exclusivity. I'm sure it was a decent...
Because remember, they announced it as a multi-plat initially. Or like they didn't announce any platforms.
Yeah.
But that definitely tells you, like, hey, this had the intention of being a multi-plat game.
Yep. And we know for a fact that, Starfield was being shopped around pre-acquisition for exclusivity. So, these games were going to be made. The fact that they were bought exclusive contracts with does not indicate that, PlayStation actually had anything to do. There's this weird mentality that people have that if a company buys marketing rights or exclusivity, that company has, takes part in the development process. They don't.
Yeah.
It's different. Like a perfect example, like the KOTOR remake, that's being published by PlayStation. So that's different. They put their own money into the pot to do all this sort of stuff. That's different. I'll give them credit for that. But when it comes to a third-party multi-plat or game that has become exclusive, I don't really give any publisher or console manufacturer credit for that.
It's just weird. But yeah, I think you're dead on there, at least in terms of why they're doing things the way they're doing it. It's mainly just people are confused. They don't know who do you give credit to this for. So, whatever. All right, next question on our list. This one comes from Bobless. Delays. First Dying Light 2, now Battlefield. Who's next? Yeah, so what they're talking about is Dying Light got delayed till next year. Was it January? February?
February 4th, I think.
Yeah, I know it's on that border somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is, but it's somewhere. And Battlefield got delayed a couple of weeks, so it's going to come out in November now instead of October. I don't know of anybody else moving. I can't see anyone else moving now. Like we're at the end of September. October is like right around the corner.
The only thing that's gonna move is there's games that are supposed to come out in 2021 that we don't have answers about right now. Like, Scorn is set to release this year. When? Right? Like, we don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm looking at a list of game releases here. I'm trying to scroll to the holidays here. God, there's a lot of games coming out. Jeez. Games I could see possibly getting a delay. There's not a lot on here that's going to get delayed at this point. Like, Call of Duty's going to launch whether it's ready or not.
Yeah, and everything I see says nope, it's not ready at all.
Yeah, no, that
people were getting on Halo. People were getting on Halo against the Insider Flight like about a month ago. They were getting on that one for looking unfinished. This one looks unfinished. It does not look good at all. I'm very worried about it. Like, it does not look good at all. But
yeah, no, there's a lot of issues that Call of Duty is gonna have to face, but they'll still sell like crazy, and people complain about it for months, and then go buy the next one. But yeah, at this point in time, I don't think there's gonna be any more delays. I think that's the last of the delays we'll see, honestly. I did find it really funny, though, when Jeff Grubb tweeted out that there was a game that was going to get delayed. And I had all these people always tell me, oh, Halo's ready to go. Halo's ready to go. They don't need to delay because the co-op campaign's not going to be there at launch. They don't need a delay. And then as soon as Jeff Grubb said, there's a game getting delayed, everyone immediately panicked for Halo. I'm like, but guys, I thought it was ready. I thought you had the utmost confidence that they can hit this deadline.
Yeah.
But with me being an ass aside, I don't think we see anything else getting pushed back. Now, what'll be interesting is all these games that got pushed to February, do they get pushed farther? That's what I think will be the interesting thing.
Some of them are gonna get pushed to March, but yeah, I think that's where I kind of feel like I would, because right now, we've done this song and dance before. Normally, October, November is the do or die date for people.
Yep.
And people get really scared when they get around to that point. They get really scared and they're like, oh no, like there's too many other games launching right now. We need to delay something. And they move back, and then sometimes they'll all pick the same date or the same month, and then they readjust a little bit after that. That doesn't happen a lot. But I feel like January is so stacked right now.
Yeah.
January, February, it's kind of ridiculous. So.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon, honestly.
Yeah. So. Anything else on this question before we move on?
Nope.
All right. This one comes from Datboy. Did either of you get into the Halo test flight? Any chance you guys will talk about it next week? Sort of.
Oh, hold on.
Nick, you down? You back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh. So yeah, I know I got into the test flight, although as of Thursday night at 9 o'clock, I still don't have an email from. Wait, let me check real quick before I say that. I do not have an email from Microsoft in terms of the actual invite. I was able to go into the Insider Hub thing and just download it, so I have it. But I'm not officially authorized yet until they send out that email. So I don't have it yet, and I'm still waiting. So TikTok, Microsoft. What about you, Nick? Did you get in?
Yeah, I got in a couple days ago. I've got it installing on my console right now. Now, whether or not I'll be able to access it and everything else, that will be the interesting part, obviously.
Did they send you an actual invite, like an actual thing with instructions or something? But
I haven't honestly looked. I saw the invite, screenshotted, and then that was it.
yeah, it said like, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna get you in there."
Yeah,
that's basically what it said in the email.
yeah.
And then it was like, "Oh wait, sometime." But I haven't got anything back since then.
See, I've got my fingers crossed because I have myself marked down for PC and Xbox. So whether I get a test flight on PC or Xbox, I really don't care. I'll play it either way. I want to get hands on with it. I want because I think what interests me so much with the Halo test flight is Halo's one of those games where people just aren't objective with it. Everyone just gets wrapped up in. They're like, it's Halo, and I'm like, yeah, but is it good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people get wrapped up in some of their, like, nostalgic franchises and can overlook stuff. I'm like, is it legitimately as good as people are saying it is? I need to know. I need to physically play it to know.
Yeah. No, like, for me, like, I don't have any, like, nostalgia aspect for, Halo, so for me, I don't really care. But I mean, I'll play Halo. I'll have a good time with it. But I just don't. I don't know, man. For me, I don't really care either way.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Halo's kind of hit the Call of Duty point for me right now. It's like, well, Call of Duty's pretty much dead to me these days. But like with Halo, it's like, okay, can you guys get me with Halo Infinite? Can you give me the love that I had for the multiplayer that you guys had in Reach? Because if you can't, I'm done.
Yeah. Hey, who knows? But like for me, I'm interested to see like, okay, what are you guys gonna do with the multiplayer? What's gonna make the multiplayer experience different?
Yeah.
And that, for me, if they could do some way where like the academy aspect of it feels like a pseudo story, I'd be invested. Like if they do something like this is not what I intend really, but I'd say something like a GTA 5 scenario where it's like, hey, you're your own Spartan. You recruited, you came in for your own reasons. You're doing your own stuff, like you're training, and they present it more like that. I think I'd enjoy it more. Like they may say something like, oh yeah, you reach rank 10, like you get like a commendation, and like the sergeant lady comes up to you and says like, you're on your path to becoming a better Spartan. something like that, like a little bit of something like that. Eventually, like you do max out or hit 50 or something like that. I don't know what the ranks are. Eventually, when you do get that high, it's like, all right, putting you on a secret mission or so something dumb. It's all window dressing ultimately, but I'd like the window dressing.
Right. It kind of like how Warzone window dresses a story into each season and how they tie the microtransactions and the season's passes into like a narrative. Even though it's a very, very loosey-goosey narrative, it's still here's you playing a customized version of yourself or how you would like to appear. Plus, here's also classic characters you can interact with and everything else. Like, you know, here's price and yada, yada, yada. So for the Halo alternatives to that. Yeah, it'd be cool.
That'd be fun. And I would love to see something like that. I don't know how that would work, but hey, I'm in. That's kind of what I want to see.
What I'm really interested in, though, is... So this upcoming technical test is going to be PvP. And there was only a short, like, I think 2-hour window of PvP in the last technical test. Everything else was against bots. And everyone was like, oh, this game's great. It's so amazing. Look how balanced it is. Look how good it is. I'm like, all right, now you're going to play against sweat kids, and we'll see how balanced the game actually is. Because when you guys start getting steamrolled 50-12, I guarantee you guys won't be saying as much nice stuff about it.
Yeah. See how that goes.
Yeah, because balance versus bots is easy. Predicting PvP balance that's the challenge.
Yep. Okay. But yeah, we'll talk about Halo once it comes out. I guess we'll go a little more detail. This is coming from like two old school COD guys going and talking about Halo. So we'll see how that all works out. So let's see what else we got. What were they on the list here? Yeah, we have one more question. So, we don't have a name of who this question came from, but it's a question nonetheless. Far Cry 6 is coming out in just over 2 weeks, and I haven't seen anyone talk about it. Do you think this franchise is finally exhausted?
So I'll field this one. I cut off his name.
Right,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Pete. This is from a guy I work with. We were talking about this today.
You bastard. Can't even give your coworkers good attention.
No. Pete doesn't deserve rights. So it's interesting because like we've had previews for Far Cry 6 and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Far Cry." And I'm like, "Okay." And the thing is the only thing that had me excited for Far Cry 6 was the villain choice.
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, like he's fantastic. Breaking Bad, The Mandalorian, he's fantastic. But the thing is I've learned my lesson with Far Cry games. Just because the villain looks like it'll be fun is not a reason to buy the game. Because, like, Far Cry 5 looked like it was going to be really interesting. And no, I'm not one of those people that was like, oh, yay, I get to shoot fascists in the face. This will be fun. I just thought they would actually sell a compelling narrative, but they basically did it in such a tiptoed way that they didn't really touch on anything interesting. They tried to make it like realistic enough that they were kind of hinting at things, but they didn't actually have the balls to execute and be like, yeah, this is this thing. So it was like the most boring narrative ever. Also, the guy you played in Far Cry 5 was a freaking moron because you got drugged and dragged places for every boss fight. Every boss fight involved you getting drugged and dragged somewhere. So your guy essentially got like date raped like 6 times through that entire game, where he'd just be walking along and it'd be like tear gas grenades would come in and he'd be like, oh no. And then you faint, you wake up in the field with a bunch of cultists and a shotgun, and it's like, oh look, it's a boss battle. And it's like, Like, I don't know. I just feel like Ubisoft is playing all its formats into the ground, and we're finally hitting the point where people are tired of it.
Yeah. Okay, so Far Cry, at least as a franchise, I feel like it's the first two games they were just trying to figure out what the franchise is about, and the third one is they hit gold, and after that they were like, what do we do with this? And then like they tried to recreate it with 4. Everyone was like, it's okay, not as good as 3, but 4 is okay. And then it was like, all right, well, we do these spin-off things like Primal, and they started pushing this out to every year, every other year, and it was like, okay, this is too much Far Cry. Like, Far Cry is supposed to be like a game that comes out every 3 to 4 years, not every year or every other year.
Mm.
Like, it's tiring.
Well, and you think about it too. Like, you had Primal, and then you had 5, and then you had New Dawn, which nobody talks about, which was like that $40 spin-off game where it was like, hey, look, it's Fallout, but Far Cry. Where they even had like base building and everything else that Fallout 4 did, but they're like, but it's Far Cry. And everything's magically pink. The apocalypse happened, and all we had left was pink spray paint. That's it. It's the only thing that survived the apocalypse. I don't know. I don't often say this, but I am waiting for reviews on this one. And
it's not even about reviews for me. It's just kind of like, is it just worth my time?
Well,
like,
see, the thing is Far Cry games are always fun. The whole going around, like, I ain't even gonna front. My favorite thing about Far Cry 5 was that you could get jacked up on drugs and have a super punch. So I literally spent half an hour one night getting super jacked in the woods and punching cougars in the mouth. And no, I was not going around punching 40-year-old women in the woods. But it was stupid, dumb fun. And that's kind of what Far Cry's always been about. And I constantly feel like what Ubisoft feels like the Far Cry formula isn't what the Far Cry formula actually is. Because after they had Voss, who was such an incredible villain, they sat there and went, we always need to have this pinnacle focus villain. And then they just kind of let everything else fall to the wayside. Innovate on the actual fun stuff you can do. Make it more insane. Make it more ridiculous. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, look, you can have an alligator buddy or something. I'm like, I had a bear in Far Cry 5 named Cheeseburgers because that's all they fed him. He was cute, and I loved him. But, like, I just feel like Ubisoft doesn't understand Far Cry anymore. And this feels like another one of their games where they're like, oh, look, it's a third world country under a dictatorship. I'm like, are you going to say anything meaningful? They're like, no. Like, they constantly put themselves in settings where they could tell interesting stories, and they just shit out shitty 70s action movies.
Yeah, like that's like the whole Blood Dragon thing. Like, it's interesting enough, but it's just not. You could use that time more effectively doing something else.
Yeah.
I know for me, it's just like, okay, I liked 5. I just liked it. I wasn't like a huge fan of it though. Again, because it felt like they were like, chasing someone else. I did like the more free, open structure of it, where it's like, hey, go do what you want. You wanna go mess up this his sister? Go mess up his sister. You wanna go mess up his brother? Go pick one. No, you get 2. Like, I enjoyed that aspect of it, but I just didn't care for, I guess, the overall tone of it. But that's more my personal preference than anything else.
Well, and also too, Far Cry 5 had the stupidest ending in history.
Yeah, I did.
Like, I remember finishing that game and being like, what?
Yeah, no. wasn't the smartest move on their end. But
Well, it felt like they brought M. Night Shyamalan in to write the last 20 minutes of the game, but didn't give him context for the rest of the game. They're just like, write the twist. And he was like, here you go.
yeah. All right. Other than that, let's see. Anything else we got going on for Far Cry? In terms of Giancarlo Esposito, I think they're kind of doing like a reverse Voss, I guess, which I like that more. Where like Voss is like really crazy on the outside, but then whenever you start like digging a little deeper, you see he's a very intellectual individual and is able to do things that most others would not be able to do. But then like Giancarlo, he's doing basically the same villain he's done the last decade of his life, where it's like really calm and sophisticated on the outside, but has a level of rage like way under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, they're just kind of doing the reverse version of that, which is fine. So, but I feel like they should have done that one like for 4.
Yeah.
Like that would have been the way to go for 4. Just do the reverse. Pagan Min shouldn't exist at all because Troy Baker doesn't need any more work. And but then like I thought like doing a cult leader was a cool idea for 5. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel. Just regarding that. But yeah, I don't know what you could do with the franchise anymore after this.
No.
Like I got no idea. Because there's no. They made it to the point now where you're such a badass and you just do so much stuff. I don't know what you could do with it.
Yeah.
I don't have my idea for the franchise, but they've gone too far at this point to even use that. But because like my whole idea was this is before like they started putting Watch Dogs really heavy in the rotation. My idea was that have Assassin's Creed and Far Cry work in tandem with each other, but pace it differently so it's all right. We'll be in the same general region, but we're doing 2 drastically different games.
Right.
So like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a location that happened. Let's say you're like in Canada. I don't know. I don't know why I picked Canada, but I don't know. I don't know my Canadian geography that well. But like, let's say like, okay, Assassin's Creed is doing something in Quebec. I don't know what. Something. I don't know what they would do with that, but
don't worry. I don't think Quebec would either.
Yeah, but then on the same time, you say, okay, we're doing like a Far Cry Revenant thing, where it's like, oh yeah, like we're like in the Yukon somewhere, and like you're surviving with like gunpowder and like muskets and shit. Like I was like, oh yeah, that'd be something different because Far Cry I think really resonates on a, pardon the pun, primal level with people. Because it's about survival ultimately.
Yeah.
Like yeah, the drugs and stuff is interesting, but ultimately it's the raw, visceral, face-to-face danger.
Well, and also too, like in the world of Far Cry, everything's hallucinogenic to them. Like it doesn't matter what the drug is. They're like, hey, lick that wallpaper. It's a hallucinogenic. Lick that statue over there. It's a hallucinogenic. You see that turkey over there? Hallucinogenic. Like, I'm to the point now where it's like Far Cry games don't always have to have a drug trip.
Yeah. They don't have to, but they want to.
Like in Primal, it made sense. It's like, here, smell these weird berries and go on a spiritual hunt. I'm like, okay, this is dope. like if they branched out, I think they'd be surprised. Like my wife doesn't play the Far Cry series, but she loves Primal. Like the whole like hunting and like spearing other cavemen and like, things like that. Like she really loved that, but she's never played any of the other Far Cry games because they just don't interest her. You imagine like a Far Cry in like the era of like, Discovery in the Americas.
Interesting.
I just don't think anyone wants to touch the whole indigenous tribe thing right now with a 10-foot pole, but
That'd be interesting. Well, like, okay, so like when this is so weird because I keep thinking of games like going here and doing something with this. I keep going back to Australia.
no, because
Like, okay,
here's the thing. If they did Far Cry Australia, which I like the idea of, just the, you get to hunt kangaroos. There's going to be somebody that says cunt every other word. It's going to be great. Like, fantastic.
yeah, that would be it'd just a wild game. But like, I also thought like this is just a random thing because it came up because I was watching Quickly Down Under, and I kept thinking about like, well, what do you do with the Red Dead franchise with Rockstar? What do you do with that? Like, you can't go backwards. Like, all right, well, who taught Arthur? And then it becomes a Dutch Van der Linde game, and it's a prequel. Red Dead Redemption 3 is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption 2. Like
They do the
like
they do the reverse Lucas thing.
yeah, like you could do something like that, I guess, but yeah, like I mean, but my thing was like, well, where do you go? And my thought actually went to Australia because Australia, yeah, they had a lot of innovations and abilities associated with civilization, but the rest of the world was like behind by like 30 to 40 years in terms of actual developments.
Mm.
And then like it was a period I want to say it was right between World War One and World War Two where they just jumped up really, really fast. And as long as you're before World War One, you could do anything you wanted.
Also, what I want is I want a Far Cry game that takes place in Australia during the Emu Wars.
Oh God. The bird that broke a nation's back.
A
Dude,
bird
I
that
feel so bad for Australia, like on an ecological level. Like they introduce one thing, messes up the entire environment. Then they introduce something to get rid of that thing, and it makes it even worse.
and then they send the army in to eradicate that, and then they lose somehow to a flightless goddamn bird.
Yeah, like what was it? There's like a whole list of things where it was like, okay, rats came. I'm please bear with me. I'm not. I'm just shooting from the hip here. It was something like they introduced like rats came from the ship and like took over. Then they introduced like something. I forgot what it was. And then they introduced cane toads. Then cane toads took over. Then they introduced certain birds, and then those birds took over. And it's like, it's one thing after another. It's like, oh my gosh, what have we done? It just ruins everything. But yeah, oh my gosh. I think the biggest misdeed of the Far Cry franchise did was making cassowaries look like pushovers.
Yeah.
Like in Far Cry 3, they had cassowaries, those little the blue-skinned, black feathered birds.
Yeah.
And they make them so easy to kill. But that's one of the only birds that actively hates humans and goes out of the way to try and kill them.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
they did redeem themselves though, because honey badgers in Far Cry 5 were just like, holy shit.
yeah.
You're like running backwards with a shotgun, like auto firing, and the honey badger's still like gnawing at you, and you're like, ah.
Trying to think what else they could do for Far Cry. But yeah, you could do something along those lines where you balance it off of other franchises. I mean, looks oddly enough, Watch Dogs Legion turned into that scenario because it was like, oh yeah, it got delayed, and now we're doing London and we're doing England for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, weird. Like it's also, it was definitely not planned because they keep referencing like Jacob and Evie Fry and don't mention Eivor at all. No hints, no clues, no anything.
Yeah.
So you definitely tell it was not planned.
And I also think, though, is like, I think Watch Dogs Legion is a good example of Ubisoft using their formula to their advantage. I really enjoyed Watch Dogs Legion because they took their
I'm going through it now.
Yeah, I liked the whole different characters and everything else. It added a new aspect to it and made the usual Ubisoft stuff more interesting.
Yeah. And there's a sense of finality to like missions. Like if you're trying to recruit somebody, you ultimately just like, oh yeah, if you fail that mission, it's over. You're done. They're screwed. They don't like you anymore. Like, and it's like, all right, well, you got to give up, move on, find someone else.
Yep. Most cripplingly depressing moment in Watch Dogs Legion for me was when my super spy got run over by a taxi cab.
Yep. I think I stopped that. So, all right. I guess it's time to go into our main topic. I think it's everything we have on here. Yeah, main topic time. What's the main topic for tonight or this morning, Nick?
Respawn and doing the Titanfall shuffle, as I'm gonna call it. So basically, there was an interview done with the community manager, and he basically stated that Titanfall wasn't like people needed to let Titanfall go because they had so much going on at the studio. Right? Which makes sense. You got Apex Legends going on. You've got the next Star Wars game. We know they're working on other stuff as well. That's a lot of juggling for a studio. And we also know Zampella's working with Dice LA as well. So, his focus is split between those two. So, Respawn's doing their thing. So, the community manager said that. Everyone was like, oh, Titanfall's finally dead. Oh, did a whole kick and a spiel about it. And then Respawn came out today. Or, no, I think it was last night. Sorry. I was heading to bed. And said, Titanfall is part of our DNA. And, never say never, basically. And then basically made it sound like people were fabricating this story. That they had denied there being a Titanfall game, even though it was their community manager that stated that there was no Titanfall game in the works. It feels weird.
Community managers, my experience is they normally keep those guys in the dark.
Yeah.
Because their job is basically just PR.
Yeah.
And they're not really allowed to they don't really have to know anything about what the future of the game is. They just know, like, say this, don't say this.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that community manager knowing the future of the franchise. But I think it's more like, hey, don't focus on a game we don't have or have announced any plans for yet.
Yeah.
Like, just don't do that. So, little changes like that and little focuses, but I think they don't really have a purpose right now. But Nick, I want to ask you real quick because I want to know your scenario at least. What's your experience with the Titanfall franchise? Is this like a soft spot for you? Is this another franchise? What's the deal?
Titanfall 1, fell in love with it late. Because I didn't have an Xbox One around the time that it launched. I think it launched in like 20. Did it launch near the launch window or was it later than that? It was like
March. It was March 2014.
Yeah. So I didn't get an Xbox One until I think late 2014, early 2015. So I was late to the party on Titanfall. I was basically someone who fell off of Call of Duty and fell into Titanfall. And I loved it. It just had, like the AI, like being able to fight AI bots, but also with the focus on being, fighting in Titans and it was different. That's why I loved so much about it, is because it was Call of Duty Battlefield, Call of Duty Battlefield, Call of Duty Battlefield, and then there was this. And it was this fresh change on everything. You had executions, you had, all this cool stuff that's now standard in FPS games now. Wall running, things like that. Things that we did not have on a regular basis that we now take as a standard in so many FPS games started with Titanfall. Titanfall 2 was a day one pickup Love the campaign. Campaign's great. Multiplayer fell off for me with Titanfall 2. It just I don't know what it was. It just didn't hit the same way. But the campaign was amazing. But the thing is like really good FPS games are very few and far between. There's a lot of bad feeling ones. There's a lot of just not great ones, honestly. The ones that feel amazing right off the hop are very few and far between. You think like Doom 2016, Wolfenstein, things like that. But Titanfall was just really unique and created a standard that so many developers copied. Like, all you have to look at is Titanfall released in 2014, and then Call of Duty released Advanced Warfare in 2015.
Titanfall was a big deal. Like, for me, when they showed off that game for the first time at E3, my jaw dropped. I was like, holy crap, this is the future. And like, that was one of the games that sold me on an Xbox. Like, my whole thing back in 2013 was I was looking for brand new AAA IP. When I heard that was exclusive, I was like, I'm in. I was like, I got it right. I was like, all right, I'm sold. Let's do it.
Right.
So for me, like that was a whole moment. First game came out, I guess I started doing my YouTube channel. I remember people complaining saying I played it too much. They wanted to see different gameplay. So that was such a weird moment for me. I was like, what? I play a game too much? Weird. So that was a strange little moment for me. But then, like, when Titanfall 2 got announced and it was coming out and had a campaign, I was like, yes, let's do this. I had a blast with it, played the crap out of the second one. I felt like the multiplayer community died really quickly comparatively. It was very sad. Just really sad moment, because it was like, I felt like it was better in every way, but people just had this mentality about it. And I don't know. I thought that was a very frustrating moment to watch that kind of go down. But anyway, so for me, I want to see the franchise do better, and so having a third one, I would love for a third one. That's a guilty pleasure thing for me.
See, I have this little point of rage with Titanfall. It has nothing to do with the game either. It has to do with people.
I gotta know what.
The original Titanfall released, and this was an era where you had to have single player multiplayer. Basically, multiplayer only games at that point in time were very, very rare. In console, anyway. And it released, and I remember a lot of people going, I would buy this if it had a campaign. And the original Titanfall sold great. But the constant hammer point of why Titanfall wasn't a great game was because it didn't have a campaign. Didn't have single player. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have single player. So, fast forward to Titanfall 2. And there's constant arguments when this game's revealed. Like, you remember the stupid blue case incident where they showed off the blue case?
Oh, yeah, the PS4 version of it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, you're abandoning your fans.
So, you have all these people that said they would have bought the original Titanfall, but it's tied to Xbox. It's exclusive. Blech, don't like it. Okay, so Titanfall 2, multi-plat. PlayStation and Xbox. Should be able to get double the player base because of this. It's coming off the pedigree of a great game before. And it's coming with a single-player campaign now. The game releases. It is stuck between Battlefield and Call of Duty. Unfortunately. However, Battlefield 1 was one of the weaker received Battlefield games. And Infinite Warfare was an absolute dud by Call of Duty standards. Then you have Titanfall 2. Campaign, multiplayer, whole shebang. Good front to back, works day one, everything else. Nobody buys it. People buy it. I know people that bought it. Launches with a fantastic campaign, a balanced multiplayer experience. It's dead in less than a year. They did everything everybody asked, and then nobody put their money where their mouth was. Some people did. I know you bought it day one. I bought it day one. But the biggest problem I have is people are like, well, why don't we have another Titanfall? Why don't we have another Titanfall? It's like, because all of you people that love it now bought it for $5. You didn't buy it at launch or, a couple of months later. You bought it in
You can't do this. You can't do the whole what was that game already? I forgot what it's called. Dead something. That's probably what it's called. You can't do the whole another Sony zombie game argument.
Days Gone?
I don't care what it is. Days Gone. You can't do the Days Gone argument. You didn't buy it at launch for full price. Your opinion doesn't matter.
No, I can literally, because no one talked about Titanfall 2 until they started selling it for $5. And now everybody and their mom's like, well, why don't we get another Titanfall game? I bought it. Yeah. How much you buy it for? I bet you if I put out a poll and asked people, did you buy Titanfall 2 at full price or for $5? I guarantee you at least 60 to 70% of the people that respond are in the $5 pool. At the very least. And I understand, like the Days Gone argument. It's not your fault if a game doesn't sell. That's fine. But you can't whine that a game doesn't get a sequel if you didn't support it. Especially when they took the Titanfall universe and made it into Apex Legends, which is one of the biggest free-to-play games on the market right now.
There's no excuse for it, honestly. So we'll see, though. We'll see.
And see,
people always come up with excuses.
Well, and see, the thing is like, there was part of me, and I hate being this guy. I sat there and was like, if Fallen Order doesn't play out right, they'll do Titanfall 3 to fall back. They'll fall back into like a comfort zone, right? Of something they know they can do. But Fallen Order shattered EA's ridiculous expectations that they had set for the game originally anyway. So, like, that's going to be next up. Which is fine. Fallen Order is another great game made by Respawn. Respawn doesn't make bad games. I just wish they would make the not bad game that I want.
It's one of those things. They're cursed with greatness, which is not what the franchise they want.
And honestly, I just hope that Titanfall doesn't become Splinter Cell for them. Where they're constantly saying things like, we're evaluating the IP's position, or we're thinking about... Like, just be honest. If you don't have an interest, if you're past Titanfall, just be transparent with your fans that, it's... It's like when you're dating a girl for the first week, but you're also, wheeling another girl on the side. Like, be honest with the one girl and be like, hey, I'm not coming home tonight because I've got another piece on the side. Like, if you've got to do Fallen Order 2, that's fine. Just be transparent with me that you have no interest in doing Titanfall 3 right now. That's fine. I'll cry. But I'll get over it.
Love our sad music.
Yeah.
But no, like I don't know. I just wish that they could have it, and I wish it was successful. It's one of those things where it's like it plays to my sensibilities so well that I love it. I remember because when I found out they weren't doing Titanfall 2 or was it Titanfall 3 anymore, I actually wrote my own like sci-fi fiction. And like a whole lore background, using that kind of as an inspiration piece, but more focusing on like a American Western railroad narrative, and just a completely different thing. But I loved that world so much, and I want to see more of it. And I need that franchise to exist. So please, please Respawn, please do this. But what would you want, Nick, in a Titanfall 3? I gotta ask you that. Like, any requests? Like, what? Like, they basically hire you as a creative director. They say, what do you want, Nick? Anything you want.
See?
What do you want for Titanfall 3?
It would be hard to do Titanfall 3 now, I feel like. Because Titanfall 2 came out in 2016, right? 2017?
Yeah. 16.
2016. And like the multiplayer landscapes changed so much in the past 5 years. Like I'd love to see more mech classes. I'd like to see like a wider variety of game modes. Like get creative with some of the game modes. Like I would love to see what they would do with, the hardware now. Because like Titanfall games were always cutting edge, and that was on the base PlayStation 4 and base Xbox One. Like I'd love to see what a Titanfall game would look like now. You start talking like 4K 60 or like a 1440p fucking 120 FPS.
1440p. Oh, dude, they 1440p 60 FPS with ray tracing?
Yeah.
I'd be dead.
But that's what I mean is like their storytelling's there. Respawn can write a story, so whatever they decide to write, I'm there for it. I just the flexibility that I'd want to see is them branch more into mech customizations and fleshing out the mechs more. Like, did you ever play the Mech Warrior games as a kid?
Never got into them.
Okay. So, like, with the Mech Warrior games, there's pretty much almost no parts of your mech that you couldn't, like, fiddle and diddle around with to, like, change your stats around, basically. And I'd love Titanfall to do that. It'd be like, okay, so my left arm's doing this, my right arm's doing this, my legs are this. This armor set that I can build off of, it's going to make me slower, but I'm more durable, or I can do a light build. I know Titanfall kind of played with that, with the different kinds of mechs. They gave you mech classes, but go dive more into the customization aspect of, like, if I want to carry a heavy cannon to blast through heavy armor, but also want to be light and mobile, let me do that. You know what I mean?
Or like just as an example idea, so it's like, okay, let's say you want to be like an ogre class or something like that. It's like, all right, cool. You move a little slower than everybody else, but you get some bigger you get the whole bigger weapons. But you're like, no, but I want that mobility. And so it's like, all right, well, you actually really can't do that if you want the mobility aspect. So you're gonna, or it's like, so it's like, okay, the class or the center core is your ultimate ability or what type you are, but you can say, oh, I want to have like ogre arms so I can be able to carry something bigger. And so it's like, well, you have to have like either an ion core or an ion type in order for you to actually use that extra power,
right?
Or something along those lines. So it's like, all right, you want speed, you want, like, you can either have more power and then be able to make yourself faster, or have a lighter frame. Like, allow you to mix and match parts and go from there. I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Like, that to me is where I feel like the game would really shine in this modern era. Like, even, like, just getting stupid with it. Like, an actual Titanfall Battle Royale. Where you drop with your mech to start.
Oh, I would do it. I would do it differently than that. I would start off when you drop as a pilot, and you get your mech over time. Like, say, oh yeah, there's a requisition this piece. But I also like your idea too. I mean, I could see that too.
Actually, here's an idea. So you land, and you know how in Fallout, right? You have like the power armor set pieces, right?
Yeah.
So in Titanfall Battle Royale is my running title for this. You land with your frame and a base weapon.
Stuff, no weapons.
Yeah, with a base weapon, like a 35 millimeter like machine gun, for argument's sake. And then you explore the map and get upgrades. You can find armor pieces, heavy armor. Okay, now I'm slower. Light armor, I'm faster. Just balance it out like that. Like,
yeah, I can see that. That'd be fun.
Also, EA, imagine how much microtransactions you could sell on mech skins.
Mech skins, pilot skins, everything.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. I'd be down for that. But I think that's why they keep focusing on having Apex, is that it's mainly just there to refine gunplay, but also get people interested in the future of the franchise. Like, what was it? I think they introduced a character, I think it's Valkyrie, and it's like, oh yeah, my dad was an Apex guy, and it's just like, yeah, the guy who dies super easy. We're just like, it's like it was a Viper, I think.
Yeah.
Just like little dumb things like that. Like, oh god. So, but yeah, I'm actually in a similar boat. I think that they have to go down the route of mech customization as the future.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, it's not really worth it.
Yep.
So,
But we'll have to wait and see.
yep, we'll see what happens. All right. Anything else we want to discuss before we wrap things up here?
No, I think that about covers it.
Sweet. All right. So our final question: would you guys be interested in a Titanfall 3? A, day one, baby. B, no, not at all. Or C, I'll buy it when it's $5.
Not
So,
too hard to tell who wrote the poll question this week.
Yeah. But I'll post this one on the Twitter account, which is Cheat Code Radio on Twitter. And yeah. That covers the poll. Anything else, Nick?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. And you guys can find me at at Anchor V2 on Twitter now. Just repurpose the Multiverse Show Twitter, so you guys can find me on there. You can find me at Anchorman V2 on Xbox, PlayStation, wherever else. And yeah, a Multiverse Show on Twitter. So
Absolutely. And I'm Nicholas Downey. You can find me on Twitter at Nicholas_Downey. You can find me on the Gaming Perspective podcast at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday. And you can also find all my written work over at lordsofgaming.net. Appreciate everyone that tunes in. Appreciate people that bugged me last week about not getting an episode. Going, hey, where's the episode? And I went, hey, it's my fault. But we're back to every week. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And we'll have more to talk about next week. So until then, stay safe, have fun, don't eat too much ramen.
oddly specific, but okay.
I think I'm just speaking to myself at this point. Later, guys.
All right. See ya, guys.